The defendant is charged with the brutal murders of my brother, Jamie, and my sister-in-law while they were lying in their bed. Shot multiple times, including both shot in the head.
Emotions ran high today inside a Georgia courtroom in the case of Sarah Grace Patrick, the teens accused of killing her mom and stepdad. She was in tears as a judge weighed whether she should be granted bond. Not only is she accused of double murder, law enforcement say she then posted about the case for months on social media until her arrest last month. They say she was putting up a front that she was trying to find the person responsible when in reality it was her. I was inside the courtroom today. I'll bring you the most impactful moments and I'll tell you what the judge said swayed his decision the most. This is a special edition of On the Case presented by Law&Crime. From Carrollton, Georgia, I'm Chris Stewart. We're here in Carroll County, Georgia. It's a little more than an hour west of Atlanta, and we were just inside the courtroom for the bond hearing for Sarah Grace Patrick. This is a case that we have been covering since her arrest in July for allegedly shooting and killing her mom and her stepdad as they were sleeping inside their home here in Carrollton, which isn't far from where I'm standing right now. This all happened back on February 20th. She was arrested in early July. She has been in jail since then. She maintains her innocence. Her grandfather and her biological father maintain her innocence. But then on the other side, today we heard testimony from people related to her stepdad who say she is guilty. Now, today wasn't about guilt or innocence. Today was about whether or not she should be granted bond, and the hearing that went on for an hour and a half was incredibly emotional.
I not only lost my brother, but also my sister-in-law in the most horrific way imaginable.
That was just part of the testimony of Kimberly Bowling today. She is the sister of James Brock, who's one of the victims in this story. I'll get to her full testimony in a moment, and I'll tell you what made it so impactful on what happened today in court. This was the moment here that Sarah Grace Patrick entered the courtroom today. This was the first time that we saw her for ourselves since her arrest. We saw her smile as she entered the courtroom. She looked to several people who came to support her during this bond hearing. That includes her dad and her grandfather. They have both told us they believe this teenager is innocent of the double murder that she's accused of committing. But as this hearing set in, we saw Sarah Grace Patrick become incredibly emotional as a total of 9 witnesses spoke about whether she should be granted bond. She's been held at the Carroll County Jail since July 9th. Today, her attorney said that she's been in solitary confinement because she's so young, and that, according to the sheriff's office, has created a safety concern about her going into the general population. Now, before I get into the arguments that we heard today, let me remind you of what happened inside this house, according to sheriff's deputies in Carrollton, Georgia, back on February 20th. Detectives say that it was Sarah Grace Patrick, then 16 years old, who shot and killed her mom, Kristen, and her stepdad, Jamie, as they lay in their bed in the middle of the night. Law enforcement say that Sarah Grace's half-sister, who was just 5, was the one who came upon her parents shot dead. Detectives say that little girl then went and alerted Sarah Grace, who called 911. This case went unsolved for more than 4 months. During that period of time, Sarah Grace Patrick posted on social media, primarily TikTok, about how she was mourning the loss of James and Kristen. She also reached out to content creators on TikTok, encouraging them to cover this case. But then, on July 9th, the bombshell from the Carroll County Sheriff's Office.
Today, we can confirm that an arrest has been made in the case. Kristen Brock's 17-year-old daughter, Sarah Grace Patrick, has been taken into custody and charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault.
Law enforcement said at the time of the arrest, they had a, quote, mountain of evidence against Sarah Grace Patrick. But at the time of this recording, we still are waiting for more specifics on what that mountain is made of. Sarah Grace not only posted on social media about the case before her arrest, she also spoke at the funeral for James and Kristen at their church.
Never take a hug or anyone or anything for granted. In love with all they have in you like they did. And lastly, by not taking people for granted, I want to thank my family, all
also known as my catafam, my grandparents, my siblings, Jaylee, Johnny, Jaden, Jojo, Trent, Tristan, Ashley, and Jesse for helping me get through my worst nightmare. And last but not least, I want to thank Tasha, Bree, Nate, Lane, Kimberly Hayes, Kim Bowling, Katie, and most of all, my father, Angie, and Ben for making such a big difference. Jamie and Mama would have thanked y'all too. I love you guys, and so do they. I'm sorry.
Law enforcement and James Brock's family told us they found that speech to be scripted and inauthentic. They also found it odd, considering she said sorry at the end of it. But we also spoke to Sarah Grace Patrick's grandfather and her biological dad, both of which are in her corner, and they tell us they had no issue with that speech. They didn't feel that it was a red flag. Much of this case has already played out in the court of public opinion, specifically on social media, since Sarah Grace Patrick's arrest. Today, the judge at this hearing began by saying he recognizes the public interest. He recognizes us, the media, who were in the room to cover the case, but he said what happens in the courtroom is about the law. Sarah Grace Patrick's defense attorney tried to paint the teenager as a girl who loves her family and loves her faith. The first witness, her pastor. He is also the pastor of the church where Jamie and Kristen went to. He says that he regularly speaks and prays with Sarah Grace Patrick from jail.
Are the substance of those conversations about do you believe me or anything like that?
Two things she calls. It's been two things every time. One is to thank me. Thank me for everything, and it's particularly for her dad. He's just engaged. He's growing. He's really growing his relationship with God. I can never make sense of tragedies like this. It's terrible what everybody's been through. But watching Beauty for Ashes and seeing DJ love the Lord and engage in his faith is beautiful. So she'll call me first. He came to the altar a couple times. We've been able to pray with him recently. So there's victories that she'll call and thank me and then ask me to pray for her. And she's actually reading some books that were recommended to her that changed my mother's life. My mother was a pretty rough addict, and those books vicariously through her changed mine. And so she's reading them, and so she'll talk to me about that. So it's three things: prayer, thankfulness, and what she's reading.
That pastor said if Patrick were to be granted bond, the church would look after her. They were trying to establish that she would have a place to go outside of jail. Before I get back to this episode of On the Case, I need to take a moment and pause and talk about something really important. Because as a dad, nothing is more important to me than my kids' futures. I do think about it a lot, especially with the kind of stories that I cover here at Law&Crime. That said, life insurance is just one of those things that no one wants to think about until it's too late. You don't want to imagine a day when you might not be there for your kids. Maybe it's to pay for college or just to keep a roof over their heads. But having a term life insurance policy means that if something unexpected does happen, they will still be taken care of. Fabric by Gerber Life is term life insurance that you can get done today. It is made for busy parents just like you. It is all online on your schedule, right from your couch. You could be covered in under 10 minutes with no health exam required. What's unique about Fabric is that they've partnered with Gerber Life, which is trusted by millions of families for over 50 years, and their high quality policies are designed with flexibility to fit your family and your budget, like up to $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. They also offer all sorts of other features like free digital wills and even investment tools to safeguard your children's futures, and everything is easy to access right from your phone. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. You can apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/OTC. Meetfabric.com/OTC. That is MEET fabric.com/OTC. Another defense witness was a woman named Carrie Jensen. She lives in Alabama, and she's the mom of a friend of Sarah Grace Patrick. Patrick was at her house in Alabama when detectives called back in July telling her that she was going to be charged with these murders. Jensen wrote the judge a witness impact statement, and she read it to the court.
Dear Judge Hightower, my name is Carrie Jensen, and I'm writing this letter on behalf of Sarah Grace. I first met Sarah when she was in 7th grade. She and my daughter attended the same middle school, and her stepsister played softball with my daughter. Our families quickly grew close. Sarah would spend weekends at our house, and my daughter Caitlin would do the same at theirs. We've shared camping trips together and weekends at West Point, creating strong bonds between our families. They have been best friends since. At the time, Donald and Kristen were in the middle of a custody battle. When I first met Sarah, she was a little shy, very sweet, kind, and humble. She was cautious around new people, but soon she warmed up to me and once told me I had a motherly presence that made her feel safe. As our relationship grew, she began to open up to me about her past and experiences with Kristen and James. One thing she said that has always stayed with me was, no matter what they've done, I will always forgive them and love them, because deep down, I know that's not who they truly are. This statement showed the depth of Sarah's heart. She truly believes in forgiveness and has always extended the same grace to others. She once told me that holding grudges isn't what God wants for us, and I've carried that wisdom with me ever since. While staying at our house, Sarah was full of life, happy, upbeat, and in many ways a typical teenager. But there were also signs of trauma she endured. She would often apologize for things she never had to. Like she would asking for food, taking a shower, or using the bathroom. It was heartbreaking. Despite that, she remained incredibly kind, respectful, and especially patient with my son, who is on the autism spectrum and is the same age as Sarah. She was fiercely protective of him and everyone she cared about. Sarah has a huge heart. She is loving, protective, and deeply rooted in her faith. She has always expressed a strong desire to work in radiology field and has never been afraid of hard work. Hurting someone simply isn't in her nature or character. Over the years, I have held her through moments of deep pain and tears, and through it all, her love to her family, especially her siblings, Jaylee and Donnie, has remained unwavering. She would never do anything to harm them.
We do know that James and Kristen Brock had a history of substance abuse issues, but this is the first testimony that we've heard about alleged, quote, trauma in the home while Sarah Grace was living with James and Kristen. Now, we didn't hear a lot today about evidence, particularly in this case. It was really about the character of Sarah Grace Patrick. There were several people in the courtroom today who wore shirts in support of Sarah Grace. You see the one that Jensen's wearing. It said, "I stand with Sarah Grace," and it had a Bible verse on it. There were 6 total witnesses that were called by the defense who spoke positively about Sarah Grace Patrick, who said that they would be responsible for Sarah Grace Patrick if she were to be granted bond. But then the prosecution brought up family members of James Brock, specifically Kimberly Bowling. I felt this was the most emotional part of today's hearing. Her witness impact statement, here it is.
Jamie is my brother, my only brother I have left. My only sibling I have had.
And like the judge said, you take your time. What do you think the judge needs to know about what's going on with you and your family?
I have something to read. Your Honor, my name is Kim Bowling, and I'm Jamie's sister. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. Since this tragic day, my brother Jamie and his wife Kristen were taken from us, I have become their voice as they no longer have one. I would like to share how this brutal tragedy has affected me. I not only lost my brother, but also my sister-in-law in the most horrific way imaginable. Every night I lie awake, unable to sleep, haunted by the thought of what my brother Jamie and Kristen might have experienced in those final moments. With the possibility that they were awake when the defendant entered their room with a gun, and I imagine their terror in their final breaths. The defendant is charged with the brutal murders of my brother, Jamie, and my sister-in-law while they were lying in their bed. Shot multiple times, including both shot in the head One second.
Mr. Parrish, can you grab that? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Parrish.
My 5-year-old niece was then woke up to find their parents lifeless. The trauma this innocent child will carry for the rest of her life is unfathomable. And what makes this even more heartbreaking is that her sister loved the defendant. She looked up to her, and for reasons I will never understand, the defendant caused such imaginable pain. And I'm so thankful that Jaylee's life was spared. With all of this in mind, I am deeply concerned about Jaylee's safety should the defendant be released on bond. Jamie and Kristen had turned their lives around. They were actively involved in church, had found happiness, and were living a great life. They did not deserve what happened to them. I ask you, please consider the following factors when deciding whether to grant a bond. My first concern is flight risk. The defendant has financial resources provided by the immediate family, which would enable her to flee. Her family maintains that she is innocent, and given her manipulative behavior, I believe she may attempt to flee. Second concern is witness intimidation. The defendant has shown a pattern of intimidation towards family members and others with knowledge of the crime. I fear that if she's released, she will continue this behavior to silence anyone who could testify against her. My third concern is evidence. The brutality of these murders is not in dispute. My family and I have seen the death certificates, and although we are not aware of exactly how many shots were fired, we do know that there were multiple gunshots to both Jamie and Kristen. Personal safety. If the defendant can kill her own parents in such a violent manner, I fear for my own safety and the safety of my family and friends. The possibility that she could harm us is terrifying, and I urge you to consider this in your decision. I believe in our support, and I support our justice system and the hard work of Carroll County Sheriff's Office and investigators. And most importantly, I'm a Christian who believes in Jesus Christ. My prayer is that justice will be served for Jamie and Kristen, and their bond will be denied for the defendant, as she has shown that she is capable of extreme violence and manipulation. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak and share my concerns.
As Kimberly was giving her statement, I kept an eye on Sarah Grace Patrick, and from what I could see, it was as emotional as Sarah Grace Patrick was throughout the entire hearing today. At one point near the end, it appeared that Sarah Grace Patrick was shaking her head as if to say no. Now, state prosecutors also called Tristan Brock, who is Jamie's son and Sarah Grace Patrick's stepbrother.
I'm here to share with the court how my life has been affected by this heinous crime. Your Honor, it feels like I'm living in a nightmare. I'm depressed. I struggle to sleep. I can't even walk through my own living room without seeing his urn and be reminded of everything all over again. I miss my father deeply. I wish I could see him again. I wish he could have met his grandson. And above all, I wish I could just hear his voice one more time. But instead now, what I have is an urn that represents memories we made and the countless memories that will never be. As a little boy, I believed my dad was the strongest Superman, that no matter what happened, he would always be there. But that belief, that dream, is now a shattered illusion. And instead of healing, I find myself reliving the shock, pain, and confusion every single day. I haven't even been able to begin to grieve. Before you make your decision regarding bond, I respectfully ask that you consider several critical factors. First and foremost, I believe the defendant poses a serious flight risk. Her family has significant financial resources and a wide support network, both of which could easily be used to help her evade law enforcement if she were released. These are not speculative concerns. They are grounded in the reality of her background and the means available to her. Additionally, based on her past behavior and what I know of her personally, I do not believe she has the integrity or accountability required to face the consequences of her actions. She has shown a willingness to avoid responsibility, and in my opinion, she would absolutely attempt to flee rather than stand trial if given the opportunity. In addition to the risk of flight, I am deeply concerned for the safety of my family. The gruesome and violent details of this case have shown me that the defendant has a disturbing lack of regard for human life. If someone is capable of what happened here, then I cannot ignore the real possibility that she could pose a threat to those of us left behind.
The final witness was a family friend of the Brocks who read a letter that she says James Brock's 12-year-old son wrote. Here it is.
My name is Jaden Brock, and I am 12 years old. I wanted to talk today because my dad and stepmom was shot and killed. I miss him every day. My dad was my hero and the person I looked up to the most. We did everything together. He helped me with school, and he always made me laugh, and we joked around a lot. Since he died, everything has changed. I feel sad and confused. It's hard to sleep, it's hard to focus, and it's even hard to smile sometimes. I still wait to hear his voice or see him walk through the door, but I know that will never happen again. What makes me more sad is I trusted Sarah and I loved her like a sister. Why would she do this to me? And why would she hurt everyone like this? I don't understand why someone would do this, but I know it is not right. My dad and Kristen didn't deserve this. No one does. And I don't think someone who could do something like this should be allowed to go free right now. I wouldn't feel safe, and I would be so scared. Please think about what my family is going through. I hope you make a decision that protects us and remembers who my dad was. A good man, a loving dad who didn't deserve to die. Thank you for listening to me.
After arguments by attorneys from both sides, the judge then made his decision.
If I weigh these witnesses' testimonies and I weigh what I hear today, I believe those closest, and I say closest, in family relationship expressed that they had vast concerns that she would have the ability to flee, that she would be a danger to the community, that she would be a danger to them, that she would pose a significant risk of intimidating, or actually I think the state steered away from intimidating, or influencing or manipulating witnesses. By finding that, I find the state has met their burden today by preponderance of the evidence. And Miss Patrick, because of that, I'm bound by the law, and I do not believe that you would be a proper candidate for bond at this time.
When the judge made that decision, I was sitting right in front of the Brock family in the courtroom, and behind me I could hear this quiet outburst of excitement and approval with that decision by the judge. Sarah Grace on the other side of the courtroom, her family sitting behind her, she was in tears as she was sent back to the Carroll County Jail. The judge did set a timeline of what will happen next in this case. Sarah Grace is next expected back in court on September 22nd, and that will be for an arraignment. The judge also set a trial date of January 5th. Outside the court today, here is what the Brock family told us.
First of all, we'd like to say thank you guys for coming and supporting the family. I'm going to read, I'm a little nervous. First and foremost, we'd like to give all the glory to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. We are very thankful that the court has recognized the seriousness of this case and made the decision to deny bond. This brings us a small amount of comfort as we continue to process the devastating loss of our loved ones. We would also like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the Carroll County Sheriff's Office and the investigative team for their dedication, professionalism, and relentless pursuit of justice. Their hard work has been critical in bringing us one step closer for justice for Jamie and Kristen. Thank you.
Ms. Bowling, when you saw your niece sitting there across from you, what were you thinking?
I never looked at her.
What was it like being in the same courtroom with her today, just that feeling?
I was just nervous because I know what she's accused of doing, and I'm not going to back down.
What do you make of her crying? She cried when you were...
I didn't look at her. I didn't even know she cried.
Your thoughts, though? What does that mean to you?
It doesn't mean anything. She killed my brother.
Our final comment's going to be, this whole ordeal is justice for Jamie and Kristen. We will continue to be their voice, and we thank you for supporting us during this time.
Thank you
all. Guys so much.
We also heard from LaToya Williams. She's a public defender who is representing Sarah Grace Patrick in this case.
We're sorry for the families that have lost loved ones. A young lady has been held on some very serious charges, but we assert and we stand on her presumption of innocence, and I will, to the best of my abilities, protect her constitutional rights, and that's all the comment I have.
Just out of curiosity, though, really quick, the judge mentioned another court date coming up. Is that essentially to give her maybe another chance at bond, or what does that look like?
The next court date will be arraignment.
Ms. Williams, can you spell your first name and your last name?
LaToya, LaToya, last name Williams, Williams.
One thing, you talked about her conditions being held behind bars right now. Can you say anything more about that?
Only thing I know is that because of her age, she's being held in solitary or isolation away from the general population.
What's the toll that that's taking on her?
I will reserve comment for that.
She's been there since the beginning or recently?
Yes, since the beginning.
Do you believe your client had anything to do with these murders?
We assert and she enjoys the presumption of innocence just like anybody charged with a crime in this state or any other state.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
After that hearing today, the prosecutor also said this case was now being presented to a grand jury, and it was expected that it would be brought to the grand jury this afternoon. That will do it for this special edition of On the Case presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart from Carrollton, Georgia. We'll see you next time.